At precisely 0800 hours, hovering silently at an altitude of 7,620 meters over the Strait of Hormuz, the EP-3 Ares II reconnaissance aircraft meticulously scanned the coastline for Iranian C-802 anti-ship missile batteries. Its mission, though critical, was routine: to map a safe passage for the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group before it entered the world's most dangerous maritime choke point. Suddenly, the passive detection screens aboard the Ares II erupted, lighting up like a Christmas tree. Not 10, not 20, but hundreds of fire control radar signals simultaneously locked onto the American fleet. This was theoretically impossible. Intelligence reports confirmed Iran possessed only 3 active batteries in this sector. Yet, the sensors were not lying. The US fleet had just sailed directly into a saturation killbox. In less than 2 minutes, a volley of over 500 missiles would be airborne, threatening to transform the pride of the US Navy into a burning graveyard in the narrowest strait on Earth. Welcome to Strategic Horizon, where we explore the most pivotal moments in military strategy. What happens when you pull the trigger and your weapon decides to target your own flagship instead? The answer, revealed over the next 15 minutes, will redefine the concept of naval warfare forever. Iran, however, had made a fatal miscalculation. While they were busy illuminating the US, fleet with what they believed to be the ultimate ambush, provided by their friend in the north, they remained completely unaware that a solitary shadow was already operating deep within their digital perimeter. This platform doesn't fire missiles, it fires logic bombs, a ghost in the machine poised to turn their greatest strength into a suicidal weakness. Iran's confidence tonight was not blind arrogance. It was built on one of the most spectacular deceptions of the 21st century. To break the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, the Pentagon ordered the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group into position. However, before the first destroyer could cross the line, the US Navy deployed its premier airborne reconnaissance platform, the EP-3 E Ares II. Its mission was straightforward: triangulate the electromagnetic signatures of Iran's coastal defense batteries, specifically the deadly C-802 anti-ship missiles. On the screens inside the reconnaissance aircraft, the coastline should have shown perhaps 3 or 4 active radar sites. Instead, the displays erupted. Hundreds of distinct C-802 target acquisition radars appeared simultaneously along the entire Zagros mountain range. This was the first layer of the trap. Iran, having received critical hardware from their friend in the north, had deployed a vast network of high-fidelity decoy emitters. These were not simple metal reflectors. They were advanced electronic warfare nodes capable of mimicking the exact pulse repetition frequency and waveform of a live fire control radar. US commanders fell victim to a classic intelligence confirmation bias. They trusted their sensors implicitly, seeing what they expected to see: a massive saturation-level threat. But in reality, they were looking at a ghost army. To engage these ghosts, the US Navy was about to make its first critical mistake, committing its most expensive stealth assets to attack empty mountainsides. At 0830 hours, the Combined Air Operations Center on the USS Gerald R. Ford gave the green light. Confident they had successfully mapped the enemy's coastal defense network, the order was given to launch the tip of the spear, 2 squadrons of F-35C Lightning IIs. Their mission was to slip through the coverage gaps and neutralize the hundreds of detected C-802 sites with precision-guided munitions. But at 0842 hours, just as the strike package crossed a 12 nautical mile, approximately 22-kilometer territorial limit, the rules of the game fundamentally changed. Tehran did not activate their fire control radars as expected. Instead, deep within the Zagros Mountains, the Russian-made Avaza-M passive emitter tracking systems silently came online. These systems do not emit a single radio wave for the F-35S to detect. They simply listen, tracking the minute electromagnetic disturbances and background noise created by the aircraft's avionics. In an instant, the invisible F-35S were stripped of their greatest advantage. On the Iranian command screens, the stealth fighters appeared as clear, undeniable targets. However, The US Navy does not panic when Plan A fails. They switch to brute force. At 0845 hours, realizing their stealth was compromised, the mission commander immediately ordered the deployment of the EA-18G Growlers. If the F-35S could not be invisible ghosts, they would become blinding suns. The Growlers surged forward, activating their ALQ-9 9 jamming pods at maximum output, blasting a wall of high-powered electronic noise across the entire spectrum to blind the Iranian sensors and shield the F-35S in a cocoon of static. By 0850 hours, 5 minutes after the Growlers unleashed their electronic storm, American commanders began to breathe a sigh of relief. The Iranian radar screens had gone black. The jamming appeared to be a total success. But they had profoundly underestimated the depth of the trap. Iran did not attempt to fight through the interference. Instead, they simply changed the laws of physics governing the battlefield. Realizing the radio frequency RF spectrum was now useless, Iranian commanders in their underground bunkers flipped a switch that NATO had never seen used on this scale. They transitioned from radar guidance to electro-optical EOIR tracking. High atop the Zagros peaks, passive, advanced thermal imaging sensors, immune to electronic jamming, locked onto the searing heat exhaust of the American jets. This critical targeting data wasn't transmitted through the air, where it could be jammed. It flowed down through buried fiber optic cables directly to the launch computers deep underground. Suddenly, the mountainsides erupted. The Bavar 373 air defense systems fired a salvo of Sayed 4B interceptors. These missiles were not riding a radar beam. They were flying on inertial guidance updates fed by the optical sensors, completely silent to American sensors. Inside the cockpit of Viper 1, the pilot's radar warning receiver remained terrifyingly silent. There was no lock-on tone, no electronic scream to warn him of impending death. The only warning came from his wingman's frantic voice over the radio. Smoke in the air, 6 o'clock low, brake left. The physics had shifted. The US Navy was no longer fighting a digital war. They were in a knife fight in the dark, and their opponent was using night vision goggles. It was now 0900 hours. The tactical situation for the US Navy had reached a point of catastrophic failure. The EA-18G Growler's wideband jamming was entirely ineffective against Iran's passive optical tracking network. The F-35C strike package was being systematically engaged by hypersonic interceptors that emitted no warning signals. With physical strike assets under fire and the electronic warfare escort blind, US Navy Command initiated the final contingency, the deployment of the EC-37B Compass Call 2. Unlike the Growlers, which rely on brute force energy to overwhelm receivers, the EC-37B is a platform built for cognitive electronic warfare. It does not attempt to shout louder than the enemy. It rewrites the enemy's internal logic. Circling at the edge of the engagement zone, the EC-37B activated its Sword software suite, its AESA arrays, beginning a high-speed scan of the Iranian coastal defense grid. The objective was the air gap, the theoretical disconnect between Iran's underground command network and the outside world. While the main command lines were buried in fiber optic cables, the system required physical junction boxes to connect to mobile missile launchers and satellite uplink dishes used for Russian-provided data. At these specific hardware interfaces, a phenomenon known as side-channel emissions occurred. Minute electromagnetic pulses leaked from the decoding equipment during high-speed data transfers. The EC-37B locked onto these electromagnetic leaks, utilizing injection spoofing. The mission computer synthesized data packets that precisely mimicked the Iranian command protocol's proprietary handshake. It did not try to block the signal. It inserted itself into the communication stream. The EC-37B executed a high-precision digital manipulation. It modified the IFF, identification friend or foe, parameters in the Iranian Bavar 373 fire control computers. Through the manipulated junction boxes, the USS Spruance was digitally relabeled as a hostile, unidentified vessel, while the Iris Jamaran was concurrently relabeled as a friendly support craft. The deception was absolute. Within the OGAB-44 underground bunker, the Iranian fire control console displayed a verified lock on what the software insisted was a high-value American target. The commander, viewing the data through the compromised command link, authorized an immediate strike. 4C-802 anti-ship missiles were initialized and launched. Because the EC-37B had redirected the missile's target recognition software, the projectiles bypassed the American fleet. The missiles locked onto their own flagship, the Iris Jamaran. The Iranian Defense Network, through its own automation, and the US Navy's systemic exploit, had effectively directed a strike against its own naval command center. The impact of the rogue C-802 missiles against the Iris Jamaran created a total cascade failure within the Iranian command and control network. As the flagship listed and secondary explosions rocked the strait, the Iranian bunker complex at OGAB-44 entered a mandatory system reboot protocol to isolate the corrupted data links. This initiated a 182-second window of absolute vulnerability. For 3 minutes, the entire automated air defense grid was offline, unable to process target data or execute fire commands. It was 0908 hours. At 0908 hours, the EC-37B Compass Call 2 transitioned into a hold-on mode, maintaining a constant, high-intensity, localized electronic saturation across the communication hubs of the OGAB-44 base. This prevented Iranian engineers from manually bypassing the corrupted fire control software. The EC-37B acted as the essential enabler, pinning the enemy's digital defenses in a state of permanent paralysis. With the air defense network neutralized, the Combined Air Operations Center signaled the executioners, a pair of B-21 Raider stealth bombers and a flight of B-52 Stratofortresses, loitering at the edge of the combat zone. The B-21 Raiders, operating in total silence, penetrated Iranian airspace at high altitude. Leveraging the 182-second window of vulnerability created by the EC-37B, the bombers opened their internal weapon bays. They did not aim for the radar arrays or the missile launchers. They targeted the structural integrity of the mountain complex itself. The B-21S deployed a series of GBU-72B advanced 5K penetrator bunker-busting munitions. These weapons, engineered to defeat the deepest subterranean facilities, were programmed to impact the primary blast doors and the ventilation shafts of the OGAB-44 base. The GBU-72S struck with surgical precision. The shockwaves from the 2,268-kilogram warheads propagated through the granite foundations, causing the reinforced tunnel entrances to collapse. The primary exits were sealed by thousands of tons of rock and concrete, effectively entombing the entire fleet of mobile missile launchers and drones within the mountain. The Iranian base was not obliterated in a nuclear fireball, but it was rendered inert. With the exits blocked and the command and control hardware physically compromised, the $13 billion fortress was transformed into a subterranean prison. The US Navy's strike package achieved a mission kill, neutralizing the threat without the need for a protracted, high-attrition ground invasion. The Strait of Hormuz was once again open for transit, secured by the cold, precise execution of electronic disruption, followed by overwhelming kinetic force. It was now 0912 hours. The collapse of the flagship Iris Jamaran did not deter Iran. 9 of the last remaining fast attack craft, launched from their coastal bunkers, initiated a suicide Wolfpack attack directly at the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group. Their goal was to close the gap to within 5 nautical miles, approximately 926 kilometers, where long-range defense systems would become ineffective. On the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the Aegis Baseline 10 system automatically analyzed data from the Spy-6 radar. The distance was closing by the second. This was a moment of life and death. Every decision had to be made in milliseconds. The Helios high-energy laser with optical dazzler and surveillance system on the aircraft carrier was activated. High-energy laser beams cut through the night igniting the fuel tanks of the lead ships before they could fire. Simultaneously, RIM 162 ESSM evolved Sea Sparrow missiles left their launchers, destroying the enemy's short-range anti-ship missiles in midair. The entire Wolf Pack formation was annihilated. The combination of high-energy lasers and the automated CIWS close-in weapon system anti-aircraft gun system created an impenetrable wall of fire. Not a single Iranian ship crossed the 7 nautical mile, approximately 96-kilometer line. Iran's desperate gamble ended in the stillness of the sea, leaving only burning piles of scrap metal on the water surface. On the radar screen of the USS Gerald R., Ford Carrier Strike Group, the red dots representing the Iranian fast attack craft formations, had completely disappeared. The surface of the Strait of Hormuz was left with only oil slicks and burning metal debris. In the distance, long-range electronic reconnaissance systems detected unusual movement from eastern air bases. Russian-flagged refueling aircraft and escort fighters, maintaining a watchful eye from a safe distance, made an emergency U-turn back towards the Khmeimim air base in Syria. Their presence had become meaningless as the game was over. Russia chose a quiet retreat, abandoning any intention of directly confronting the overwhelming American advantage.